And I was like, okay, yeah, I want to go back to college. And he was like, why? What do you want to do? Like, and I was like, I picked this course. It was like automotive transportation management or something like that. And again, 2 months in, I was like, oh God, I was like, this isn't it. So there was one module in that course about like car dealerships. And I was like, oh, that sounds kind of relatively interesting. But originally, like from 2 or 3 years before that, my mother was onto me about going into car sales when I was like 18, before I went to college.
Really?
Yeah, because we had a family friend, Barry was his name. And I was like the page boy at his wedding, let's say. And then his daughter, me and her would have grown up together. And he was in car sales. Mm-hmm. And my mom knew it was like a good job. And she always thought I'd be good at it because I was like a talker anyway, like, or a bullshitter, as she'd say. But so she kind of wanted me to do that. And then I never really thought much about it. And then when I came out of college, I started applying for jobs around Cork. But like CV in hand, going into like car dealerships. And now after working in car dealerships, I know exactly what happened to MCVs every time I handed them in. But at the time, it seemed like a great idea. And eventually then that same guy, Barry, actually got me a job in a BMW garage in Cahir, so back where we were from. But
was that in Morrison's?
Morrison's, yeah. But it wasn't a sales job. And I was under the impression it was kind of like a junior sales job. So I turned up like, not in a suit, but I turned up in like a jumper and chinos and stuff like that. And then they were like, oh, you're going to have trouble washing cars in them clothes.
Oh, no. But that's a big, as well, even though that's in Cahir, it's a small enough town, that's a big garage.
Yeah, it was a big dealership, yeah. And in fairness, they took me in and it was basically a summer job, but I dropped out of college for it. And then I never asked. You know, it was my own fault. I was just like, a job, yeah, cool. Drop out of this course, go do that. So I was there for about a month washing cars, and then a job came up in Waterford, like junior sales role or whatever. So I applied for that in Boland's in Waterford. So if anyone's from like Waterford area, there's like 40 Boland's garages. They're owned like by like 4 brothers. Really, really successful.
That's all in one little strip. I know
it's
the
on
area.
the Cork Road. Yeah.
What time is that? Was that this would have been 2018?
2017.
2017.
So July 2017. Yeah. I started selling cars.
I remember working in Tesco. I was on the till, and I think you had just posted on Facebook or something like that about having gotten a new role, and I said congrats to you on it at the till.
Oh yeah,
I remember that, and you were like, oh yeah, sound.
Yeah.
So that would have been early. That would have been late 2017 or early 2018 because I just started college at that point. I was in Tesco. Yeah.
I actually remember that, but I didn't know. I don't remember it as you, but now that you say it, like obviously. Like,
just trying to make chronology here. Yeah. So then you get the job in Boland's, and then how does that sort of play out?
Yeah. So I did a junior role then in Boland's. So junior roles generally are like 3 to 6 months. They're kind of like car sales isn't really like by the book or anything, so you don't have to do a junior role. But I was only 19 at the time, or 19 going on 20. I would have turned 20 in September, I think. I think that's about right. But so I went into like a Peugeot dealership down in Waterford. Got trained up then. And then after about 2 or 3 months, I started selling cars. So the first month I sold like 4 cars or something like that. And then they moved me then to one of their garages in Kilkenny. So that was the one thing with the Boland's, which was kind of a problem.
It was the Kilkenny job. That was the one I congratulated.
Yeah, because everyone kind of congratulated me that because I not to like trick people, but I put up as like working in an Audi dealership, and then people who don't know anything about car sales like, oh, he's working in Audi, that's amazing. But really, truthfully, you're actually much better off working in like a Peugeot, Renault, because it's all numbers. You know what I mean? Car sales is about numbers. So you sell 3 times more Renaults than you're going to sell Audis. You know what I mean? And most of the time, you're getting paid the same amount.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like, at the time, I was getting like a percentage of the profit, but that's dead now in car sales. So it's usually just a bonnet price. So like, could be anywhere from 100 to 200 euros a car, depends on your garage or whatever. So you're actually much better off in like a smaller dealership, or like not a smaller, but like a
higher volume dealership.
Yeah, higher volume, but then you're like, you have to drive a Renault or a Dacia Duster company car when you could be driving like an Audi A6 or whatever. So I went anyway. I was in Kilkenny for about a year and a bit, and then they moved me again to their Range Rover dealership. And then that was a killer for me, because I was like, I knew exactly what it was like in there. It was like, you know, if you sold 2 cars a month, you were doing great kind of thing. Like, it's a slow brand. It's a very slow brand. So I was in there for about a week, and I asked them, I was like, look, I know you opened a garage in Cork. I want to move to Cork. Can you move me down there? Like, yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll move you eventually. And I was like, okay. I waited like a week, and I was like, nah. So I started applying for jobs in Cork. Got a job in Cork then in Keary's, which was a big dealership in Cork at the time, or still a huge dealership in Cork. Hyundai garage. Worked there for about 6 weeks, hated it. Just didn't get on well with the people I was working with. So I rang my old boss back in Boland's, and I was like,
Tail
look,
between the legs.
Yeah, I was like, look, I'm in Cork. this didn't really work out. I was like, can I please have a job in that garage in Cork? So he was like, yeah, go on. Look, we'll fit you in. Meet me. So I met him like that week or whatever, and it was fine. So I went into like a Hertz car sales garage in Cork, and that's where I met then the manager there was Paul O'Connor. That's his name. So he actually ended up being my boss before I moved here. So he was the manager there, and then it was me, Paul, and then Jack. It was Jack Martin, who was just opened his own garage also in Clonmel now, just like 3 months ago or 2 months ago. So it was the three of us working then, and this was like this was like a little gold mine for us at this stage, because it was just volume, used cars, finance deals,
the boiler room.
Yeah, and there was just the three of us in there, and we were just banging them out, and then eventually, so full circle. Then Barry, who was the original guy who got me into car sales, technically, rang me up, and he was a manager of a garage in Cork now. And he was like, look, I need a salesman. Do you want to come over here? So he made me an offer. I took it. And then I went back to Keary's Hyundai, just in a different garage where he was working in Middleton. Then I worked there throughout COVID for about 3 years.
So that was the longest stint?
That was the longest stint, yeah. Because of COVID, it was kind of broken up a bit. So it actually didn't feel like the longest, but it was definitely the longest stint. And then I opened... So we're in like COVID now, so 2021 maybe at this stage, and then I opened Cafe Pompeii, me and Sam. I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit, but when I went and opened that, then I was kind of given an ultimatum in work. They're like, well, you can't do both. So I was like, well, I can. I was like, why does it matter? And then they were like, no, you can't do both. Like, when you're in sales, you need to be focused on selling, not focused on this other thing. And then they were like, oh, and you have this YouTube channel as well, and they didn't really like that. So I was like, right, well, that's enough for me. So I just left. So then I took a year out basically to try to do Cafe Pompeii, which failed. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But then after that, started working for Paul. So I was kind of doing a few bits for Paul throughout that year anyway. And then one of his sales guys left. So he's like, look, I know you're not in car sales anymore. Do you want this job? So I was like, yeah, I knew Paul would be good to work for. So I went working there. And I was there for about a month and a half. And Paul went on holidays to Dubai with his missus. And he came back and he was like, oh man, if I was you, I'd be living over in Dubai. Like, he's like, I'd go into like real estate or something over there. He's like, you're mad over here. And he just said that